Well, here I am at my outdoor work area, which has become overgrown with weeds. But anyway, here is the subfloor structure to the cat structure. 4x4s with 2x4 joists. Remember, it's just cats, so it doesn't have to hold me for very long. Next to that is what will be the roof, which will sit on top of the walls we'll see here in a moment. The rafters are just 2 foot apart. Again, it's going to be flat, and you can see the roof sheathing underneath there that'll go on top, which eventually will be covered with metal roofing. Of course, this is the AC sanded plywood, which will become the flooring inside the cat house. There's a pair, if you can see both of them there, of the ends, the walls for the ends of the cat house. And here are the walls, 2 of them. One of them has an opening in the middle, which is about 3 foot wide to allow for a doorway. And again, all the dimensions are based off of the concept of minimizing waste. Everything should be 4 by 8. So the total height up to the roof is 4 foot. So when I put the siding on, it'll be 4 foot by 8. And likewise for the roofing and all the other dimensions, are just very minimal waste. So I managed to drag the substructure to its final destination. As you can see, we're on a bit of a hill here. So I've got some concrete piers with 4x4 posts, all treated, of course, make everything level. The upper end, just letting the treated substructure sit on the ground. I don't want to do that on this end because I don't want the water to accumulate. But again, this thing only needs to outlive the cats, not me. And I think being treated wood, it'll last quite a long time in our dry environment here on the Central Coast. So that's what it looks like so far. Okay, so the next step I took was to put the decking plywood down. You can probably see I put probably way too many screws in, but before I start screwing it down, I marked the ends where the joists are at and drew a line across. I didn't have to guess where the joists are at. It was originally really squared up when I first put the plywood down on these screws in, and I started from one side and worked my way to the other. I noticed when I got to the left side here that the decking had shifted maybe 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch to the right. I think that's due to the fact that the decking was not completely flat before I started laying it down. It's of no consequence, but it'd be nice to have it perfect, but it doesn't always go that way. So that's the decking element. Okay, so I've got the next couple of steps completed. I've installed and secured the framing, the walls. I used some construction screws to secure it to the substructure to try to minimize the gaps, keep the bugs out and so forth, and went back with 3.5 inch lag bolts to secure it structurally. And then the roof, I guess for the lack of a better term, the rafters are secured. And again, I used construction screws to secure it down to the top of the walls. Normally I'd use a nail gun, but where I'm at here I can't really use a nail gun at the moment, so just use construction screws. Plenty of them, nice and secure. It's not going anywhere. So the next step is to lay down the sheathing for the roof, and then after that, of course, the siding and some other amenities, if you will. So that's it for now. Alright, so I've completed the installation of the roof sheathing. It's tied into the frame and the rafters, if you will, with screws. And it just took a few minutes. You can probably see where, again, I marked where the rafters are at just for ease of installing the screws. Those are 2 foot on center. The roof's not going to really bear any weight, so it's quite strong for its intended purpose, of course. Now it's time to run down to the hardware store and get some siding and some metal roofing and some metal trim to keep the rain out. Okay, picking up where we left off. I've walled in 3 sides of the cat habitat and roughed in where the windows and door will go. Windows are way overdue in shipping from the company I ordered them from, which is quite unfortunate. The door is extra wide because the interior height is certainly not one that could stand in, so that inside we'll have a bench on the back where there are no windows or openings, and a series of beds and so forth underneath the bench. And in this way, when the door is open, the food and water dishes will be immediately inside and make everything quite accessible without having to crawl around in there too much. There's a window on this side to allow for a view and some daylight at the end of the day. And on what I would call the front here next to the door, so there's a view looking towards where the people live, which the cats always seem to enjoy. And on this yet to be walled inside, there will be a cat entry approximately in the center with a little flap on it, so they will be out of the weather. On the back, of course, they'll just remain no openings whatsoever to protect from the weather and give them a safe spot to sleep against. Next step is to put on the flashing around the top and the corners, and then the roofing, and of course when the finish the door and the windows arrive, those will be installed. Well, here we are for one final video of the cat shelter. I've added the majority of the flashing, the trim, the windows, and the door with its hardware. The total cost I think I've spent on materials on this thing is a little over $300. The trim were leftover boards from another project. If I had a do-over, I'd probably buy new boards, since some of them aren't too swift on there. But so for the purposes of the video, I'm going to call it done, even though I have to come back and correct some details. Let's see one of the windows here. That's 14 by 21. It's tempered glass, has a little screen in there, which is nice. You can regulate the interior temperature during the day. It gets warm, and then close the windows, and it keeps the warmth inside at night for the cats. So there's one on that side. Of course, one here on the front you can see. And I still have to do the interior, add some shelves and so forth. I put a couple of beds in there, and sure enough, the little rascals came in to investigate, and one slept in here. I have a little trail camera in there so I could see what kind of activity was going on during the construction phase here. And the door hardware, typical sort of shed stuff. Have this locking latch. You can see it turns this, pardon my shaky video here. See, it turns the latch, which catches on the inside of this 2x2 on the interior. It's really stout. I'm not worried about anybody breaking in, but it's nice to keep it weather tight, airtight as possible, even though there is a little breathing room there. And then of course there's a little entry on this side, which they've already made use of. So again, I'm going to call it a day. I have some details to catch, a little paint detail, and replace a cracked board here and there. But if the cats like it, it must have come out okay. Certainly the furthest thing from perfection, but for about 8 hours of time and $300, it'll last probably longer than I will. Thanks for watching. Take care.